Hey everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom. What has Everett done for you recently, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked, and here's what I can tell you. I have read the entire 418-page transcript of the Tony Bobulinski deposition that he gave last week to House Oversight Committee headed up by James Comer and also sat in by a couple of nasty Democrats. Now, I'm not asking for a pat on the back. Don't feel sorry for me. The challenge is how to condense that into a workable amount of video. But folks, there are some bombshells. So I never come to this camera microphone without receipts. I think it's very important to bring the receipts, but I will do this. I will cut to the chase on some of the bombshells because no doubt you have seen in 2020 the interview that Tony Bobulinski, who was a business partner with the Biden crime family, you saw that episode with Tucker Carlson in October of 2020. Maybe you saw a follow-up interview that was in 2022. However, if you've seen those interviews, you have not heard the full story. And that's no fault of Tucker Carlson or Tony Bobulinski, but there are some bombshells, and I'll list them for you. And then we're going to go back and we're going to validate them. Number one, the Biden crime family, Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, Joe Biden, they should be in prison for activities that took place while Joe Biden was a sitting vice president. Number two, the Biden crime family, Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, Joe Biden, should be in prison for things that happened after he left the office of office of vice president. And number four, Hunter Biden committed fraud against his business partners. We're going to show you that and show you the receipts of that. And in order to commit that fraud, he essentially committed forgery. And I'm going to literally show you. You're going to see with your own eyes. You're going to see that. And then the last one, this was like an intuitive bombshell that made me stand up, get out of my chair, jump up and down a couple of times. You've no doubt seen the text message where Hunter Biden is texting Zhang, who is second in command to Chairman Yi of Chinese Energy Corporation, CEFC, where he says, "I'm on the couch with my dad, and we're really, really mad. And if you don't pay us right away, we're going to be really, really okay." You probably saw that text. Now, if you have concluded, or if anyone would have concluded that was, and by the way, the Chinese paid up, and the Bidens got the money, the Biden crime family got the money. But if your take on that would be that Hunter stood up and he asserted himself and he wasn't going to be played around with, and he pushed and he got paid, folks, nothing could be farther from the truth. Because of Biden, because of Hunter Biden's crack pipe, paycheck loan, payday loan, gotta cover the last check that bounced for the last house of ill repute. Literally, because of that mentality, I can tell you the Chinese played Hunter and Joe Biden like a fiddle, and they got what they wanted. They got their corruption, they got their influence, they got everything they wanted, and they got it dirt cheap. I'm going to give you the receipts. A lot of ground to cover, so let's get started.
I hear the sweet sound of freedom, and I won't be
The only announcement that I'll make is please like, please share, please subscribe, please leave a comment. And I'm not coming to you live because I am a little bit put out, a little bit tired of, I can post a video and boom, there'll be 100,000 views. I'll do the same kind of content on a live stream, especially with Facebook 2 days later. And it'll be just like minuscule. So I don't know how the algorithms work, but anyway, I will say this, any content that we produce within an hour or two, you can find it on ohioforfreedom.com. So it's not a fancy website, but the content is there, ohioforfreedom.com. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do this. Because this, folks, and let me just say this. In the last nearly 4 years that we have been, well, it has been 4 years in this information psyop situation that the whole world, and especially the country of America, has been in. Yes, you've got to take action to counteract that, but everything begins with knowledge. Everything begins with information, and that's why I'm doing this program. And so here's how I'm going to do this. I want to introduce to you three characters in the beginning. Tony Bobulinski, former business partner with the Biden crime family. That does not make him a criminal, anything but. I want to introduce you to a gentleman called James Gillier, who is a businessman, formerly, it seems, had an affiliation with British intelligence MI6. And I want to introduce you to this guy who has been disappeared, Yi Jianming, who was the CEO of CEFC, China Energy Corporation. Still haven't figured out what the F is for, but also working in close conjunction with the CCP. But these three guys are big. They're important to the story. So we're gonna kind of unpack that as we go. Tony Bobulinski. Who is Tony Bobulinski? Well, first of all, Tony Bobulinski is a military, born into a military family. His grandfather was military. His dad was military. His brother, career military, might still be in the military. And his sister actually works for the VA. So this is a very patriotic, very American family. Tony went to college. It was either Penn State University or University of Pennsylvania, but college there in Pennsylvania, and was an engineering and a mathematic whiz. Very, very smart individual, especially gifted in advanced math. The Navy spotted him and recruited him to a program that upon graduating college, he would immediately be an instructor in the Navy's nuclear program. So guys that are on a nuclear submarine or an aircraft, they would have received instruction from Tony Bobulinski. And as he says in the transcript, there's like zero margin of error in that environment. Now, at the end of his 6 years, he chose to go into business. That's what he wanted to do. And being extremely bright and more tech-oriented and really good with math, he got involved in trading and kind of on the investment banker side of things. I believe the first company that he went to work for was Citigroup. I could be wrong about that, but he worked for a group on the East Coast, traded and made deals and made millions of dollars for the company that he worked for. He was then spotted by one of the wealthiest families in the world, headquartered in the West Coast. He chose not to name them just because of their anonymity. They're private citizens. Went to work for them, relocated to the West Coast, and proceeded to make trades and investments and sit on boards on their behalf, and made for them millions and millions of dollars. After a period of time, he wanted to go into business for himself, talked to the head of the family, and got the head of the family's blessing. Not that he would have to have that, but you would want to have that. And he did get that, except the head of the family said, listen, go off, make your money, have a successful business, but stay affiliated with us and stay on some of these boards that you're on and continue to consult with us. Says a lot about somebody's character. So Tony Bobulinski, pardon me, I'll get this cough out of my way here. Tony Bobulinski went on to become an extremely successful business person, visiting 50 or more countries. And in those countries, he would go to the various cities and he would find great opportunities for investment and made tens of millions of dollars. And so we'll pick up the story where Tony meets the Bidens a little bit later. But I will say this, Tony Bobulinski never needed the Bidens at all. The Bidens needed him. So who is this James Gillier? James Gillier seems to have had previous affiliations with MI6, but in a way he would be sort of equivalent to Tony Bobulinski as far as trades go. In other words, he would travel different parts of the globe, find intriguing and lucrative investments, make them make the money, and he became a friend, confidant, or at least an associate by Tony Bobulinski. And so it'd be like Tony would show up in a city and he would text James Gillier and say, hey, this is where I am. Who should I be talking to? What kind of deals are available? That kind of thing. I want to read you a text from this is early in 2017, where James Gillier is texting Bobulinski and he says, I was there with chairman of the Chinese. We flew to DC, then New York City, then Dubai. Now they go home. Me too. Bought second biggest Gulf bank and 4% of Abu Dhabi oil stock. So that's the kind of league these guys are playing in. This James Gilliar is working with a group that bought the second largest Gulf bank. Yeah, not exactly a sit at home in your underwear day trader. These are guys playing on a pretty serious level. So let's keep moving. And then I want to talk about this guy briefly, because this is where all the big money was coming from. In fact, this is where the money came from that eventually made its way into the coffers of the Biden crime family when after Hunter Biden was sitting on the couch with his dad crying and moaning and so forth. But Yi Jianming was CEO, got started in the early 90s. He was just a clod out in the China forest, literally. But somehow, at the height of his career, at his heyday, he oversaw $44 billion of invested monies through CEFC. And of course, you don't get that big in China without being under the thumb of the CCP. And perhaps the CCP was a big part of how he rose so quick in the first place. However, in 2017, Patrick Ho, who was associated with CEFC, was indicted for money laundering, and that CEFC was involved in bribes that were paid to African presidents. Of course, that's what they were caught at. That's kind of my take, is what they did, all over the world. But I've put there in the bottom left, that's actually, you won't be able to see it, it's too small, but if you go to Wikipedia, it will say that Yi Jianming disappeared in 2018. And that's what can happen when you get crosswise of the Chinese Communist Party. He disappeared. Is he even alive? I doubt it. I doubt it very seriously. That's kind of the way the Chinese roll. But those are some of the three of the principal players that are important in this story: Tony Bobulinski, James Gilliar, and Yi Jianming. Now let's keep going here. Let's pick up on the relationship between Tony Bobulinski and James Gilliar. So this is from December 2015. It's a text, and these might have been done on WhatsApp. I'm going to call them a text. I don't know what WhatsApp is really. James Gilliar is saying there will be a deal between one of the most prominent families from the U.S. and them, that would be the Chinese, constructed by me. I think this will be a great addition to their portfolios. It will give them a profile base in New York City and then in LA. So this is simply a text where James Gilliar is just staying in touch with his friend and sometimes business associate, Tony Bobulinski, telling him that he's working on something really big that involves the Chinese and one of the most prominent families in America. And this is important because there's several breadcrumbs throughout that deposition that clue you in on that because Tony Bobulinski became introduced to the Biden crime family in 2017. Remember that. Tony never met the Biden crime family until 2017, right after President Trump was put into office. But this was referencing activities that took place with James Gilliar and the Biden crime family while Joe Biden would have been the sitting vice president. So let's keep going from that. So now we pick up on, this is February 20th, 2017. So this is 1 month after President Trump was sworn out. Joe Biden is no longer sitting vice president. And this is James Gilliar texting, okay, man, let me get organized. Most important to meet my partner, so we agree that you are in. It will be massive. Tony Bobulinski responds, who's your partner? Hunter Biden. Okay. And please notice, there's no text that indicates that Bobulinski is like blown away. Oh my gosh, it's Hunter Biden. He's like, okay. So that is the first evidence that we have of Tony Bobulinski becoming aware that there's the potential for doing a deal that would involve Hunter Biden. Now, as things progress, we are moving ahead to the 2nd of May. So this would be a few months later. This is Tony Bobulinski texting Hunter. Please let me know if we will do early dinner with your uncle and dad and where. And then also he asks about how they wanted a certain Chinese document translated. That's not so important. What is so important is Hunter's response. Dad is not in now until 11. So let's meet. You and me and Jim meet at 10 o'clock at the Beverly Hilton. So evidently Joe Biden was scheduled to speak at something called the Milliken Conference. He flew in the night before, and they met in the bar or the lounge at the Beverly Hilton, and they met in kind of a private corner, or just not a busy corner, for a little bit of privacy. And he was running late, but Faux Joe walks in, and Tony Bobulinski got to meet and spend time with Joe. Now, in the transcribe, it says that they had kind of prepped Tony. Don't ask a lot of questions. Don't go into a lot of detail. Just let Joe do most of the talking. And when Joe arrived, Hunter jumps up and he says, give me 10 minutes to kind of read Dad in. So they're very careful about how they handle Joe because of the sensitivity involved with him being a former vice president and so forth. But let's keep going. Now, after that meeting, this is timestamped 11:40 on May 2nd, Tony Bobulinski text Jim Biden. James Biden, but he went by Jim. Great to meet you and spend some time together. Please thank Joe for this time. Was great to talk. Now, that is absolute proof that when Joe Biden during the 2020 campaign said, I've never talked to my son about his business associates, I don't know, he was flat out lying. You've known that for a long time, but that's a piece of evidence. That's a piece of proof that you can actually look at, and you can see that. Now, so this is the idea first came up in 2017 or February of 2017 that there may be a partnership that involved Tony Bobulinski and James Gilliar and Hunter Biden. These are things as they're progressing. So March 5, this is James Gilliar texting Tony Bobulinski. Vehicle initial cap will be 10 million US paid. You look at Bobulinski's response. Okay. Who is putting up the 10 million? What is the 50-50 cap? Now, I want to stop right there because maybe you have heard, and I'm going to show you the email where they're suggesting the breakdown of 20% for Jim, 20% for Tony, and 10% Hunter held for the big guy. Okay. Maybe you've seen that email, but this is a detail that I wasn't clear on, and I don't think most people are. Initially, the company that was going to be founded, which would be called Sinohawk Holding, and it was founded, and they did sign the agreement. So Bobulinski, Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, another fellow named Rob Walker, and James Gilliar did go into business together. You can see their signatures. But as far as the initial $10 million, this is so important to understand. That $10 million was coming from the Chinese, and what was it to be used for? It was not an advanced commission. It was not an upfront profit, not at all. It was $10 million that was to be used for operating capital and to set up a business. As you go through the transcription, Tony Bobulinski explains that that money was to be used to hire staff and secretaries and rent facilities, and most importantly, to hire the best and the brightest and hire a small army of hard charging type A investor traders that would fan out over the globe and find investment opportunities, because the goal of Sinohawk was to manage billions of dollars and make hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. So the 10 million wasn't a profit. It was a seed, and that seed, in anybody that would treat that different is so short-sighted, because that was like possibly the gold mine of gold mines. Hunter didn't understand that, but that's very important to understanding Hunter's motivation, because we get to this page from the transcription. I'll just begin reading. This is Tony Bobulinski talking. Because we had just met in New York, pardon me, Hunter Biden was acting like, hey, there's 10 million coming. I want it coming out of the account the next day. There's messages of me, that'd be Tony, saying he's acting like this is going to be his personal piggy bank. I don't want anything to do with that. And I had sort of like walked away. I said, guys, you figure this out. In other words, he was bowing out, and they would say, no, 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 calm down. Let's get back. And he said there was like 3 scenarios. So I just want to take a minute and underscore that. I want to talk, and we're going to talk about it later, Hunter Biden's crack pipe, paycheck loan, payday loan, pawn shop, hawk your mother's wedding ring kind of mentality. The $10 million was to fund the operation of a business that would handle billions of dollars and make hundreds of millions in profit, not fight over an initial $10 million. That's extremely important to understand that, because make no mistake, the Chinese understood that. Now, as these negotiations through early 2017 progressed, it becomes clear that the greedy Biden crime family wanted another ever more access and a bigger seat at the table. This is James Gilliar. This is May 18th. Not strictly true. The family is the reason the chairman Yi wants the relations. Now remember, Chairman Yi is the chairman of CEFC, the big China corporation where the money was coming from. Not strictly true. The family, that'd be the Biden family, is the reason the chairman wants the relations. H, that'd be Hunter, could be unreliable, so I pushed another family member. So see, this is James Gilliar trying to justify Jim Biden, Joe Biden's brother Jim, to be part of the action, because as Tony says in the transcription, if you're starting a company, you don't just arbitrarily give 10% of the ownership of the company away. And this was his answer. They could have, this is Tony Bobulinski talking, they could have split their equity, which was the discussion. He's actually calling James Gilliar out. Let me read it again. They could have split their equity, which is the discussion. And then Jim sat there and said he wouldn't take it from H. And all of a sudden they had equal parts. Come on. It happened right in front of you. So that's Tony Bobulinski complaining, legitimately so, calling James Gilliar out. And then this is the email that we heard about what the percentage is. Now, that's way too small to see. So being thoughtful and kind, I just blew up the first half of it, and I want to read that a couple of things for you, because this, if this is important to you, this is a key piece of information. This is James Gilliar talking to Tony. Tony, I've already alluded to discussions, and look where I've highlighted. Hunter has some office expectations. He will elaborate, folks. Hunter Biden went through millions of dollars, and he was always broke. Because that's what happens when you spend millions of dollars on your nose and millions of dollars. Well, I don't want to say it that way, but I've literally read through emails where he's arguing with the madam ahead of a prostitution ring and saying, please do business with me. I know my last check bounced. That's the kind of guy that Hunter Biden was. And then in this email, it says, James needs travel, $15,000 a month. That'd be $180 a year. These guys are just looking for cash flow. They have no idea what kind of gold mine they could potentially be sitting in. But this is the second half of the email. And then you got to kind of read between the lines here a little bit. This is still James Gilliar trying to talk Tony Bobulinski off the ledge and say, hey, be okay with these percentages and please stay in the deal because we need you. Personally, this is James Gilliar talking. I've already spent a large amount on this. I'm not in it for the weekly pay, but as we have been shorted on this agreed package, I feel this is right and reasonable. Now, what was he referring to when he said when we have been shorted on the agreed package? It's not about the percentages that we're just gonna read, because then you would make the percentages larger. No, there's in the transcription, Tony Bobulinski, they were going to meet the chairman of CEFC, but he no-showed him, but he sent one of his second in commands. And the story is Hunter Biden comes charging into this restaurant in New York City, screaming, yelling, cussing, carrying on like a madman, like an idiot. Where's the 20 million you owe us, or the 10 million you owe us? And it's not talking about the Sinohawk venture. It's talking, folks, about work that they had done for the Chinese while Joe Biden was still a sitting vice president. And that's what he's addressing here. But let's just, so that we stay with the loop, this is what they were trying to sell Tony Bobulinski on. And you can probably see it. 20 for Hunter, that'd be H. 20 RW, that'd be Rob Walker. 20% for James Gilliar. 20 for TB, that'd be Tony Bobulinski. And then 10 for Jim Biden, who didn't do anything, who had no value whatsoever, except his last name was Biden. And then 10% held for the big guy. And of course, we know that that is Joe Biden. Now, Tony Bobulinski was not down with this. The whole thing seemed weird. The whole thing seemed off. Here's a text from Hunter Biden a little while later. Hey, Tony, I have an idea. Now, listen to this carefully. We're going to spend some time looking at this text. This will give you a lot of insights into the twisted mind of Hunter Biden. But please, after you've gone in there and analyzed, please come out of that dark and dangerous place. Hey, Tony, I have an idea. In light of the fact that we are in an impasse of sorts, and both James' lawyers and my chairman gave an emphatic no, I think we should meet in Romania. I just want to spend a moment. Hunter Biden referring to his father as my chairman. He's not talking about Chairman Yee of the funding party, the CEFC. No, because that chairman wouldn't care what percentage somebody they're going to do business with. No, he's talking about the context of James Biden's lawyer said, no, that's not big enough. And when he says my chairman, why doesn't he just say my father? What a weird place to be, going around and you're big and important because of your father, but you got to refer to him as your, do you ever refer to your father as your chairman? And yet you're trying to be big and impressive in front of somebody, but you're still referring to your dad. It's just, I don't know. It's really, really creepy, and it's really, really weird. Now, we'll skip that one there. Now, so I made a couple of, now we're going to start getting into some pay dirt, and I'm going to bring this in for a landing probably in about 5 or 6 minutes. So, this deal, again, was to have $10 million of startup capital to hire staff and actually get into business. It wasn't the profits. It wasn't an advance commission. But to do that, they had to set up an entity called Sinohawk Holdings. And I want to ask yourself this. How difficult is it to open up a bank account? It's not really that difficult. How difficult is it to set up an LLC and then set up bank accounts for that? It's not really that difficult, but it's a little more complicated, a little more paperwork. However, when you set up accounts for a company that is going to be international in scope and doing international business in large amounts of dollars, sometimes in the millions, sometimes in the tens of millions, it is a whole lot more complicated. And I learned 2 terms going through this transcription I just wasn't familiar with. One is PEP, politically exposed people. Tony Bobulinski had done business at a huge level all over the world, but he had never dealt with PEP, and those are politically exposed people. And when you have politically exposed people involved in a business transaction in the banking world, you have to disclose that. You have to lay that all on the table. And it's not a slam dunk that they're even going to give you an account at Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan Chase or something like that. But then there's another term that I became familiar with going through this transcription, and that is KYC, know your customer. Because see, banks are really not there to be money laundering institutions. So I said all that to say this because Tony Bobulinski talked about it at length. He had to look JP Morgan Chase in the eye and supply the documentation. And based on his years of doing business with them and his reputation and his credibility, he was able to pull all that together. And it's not an easy thing to do. And also, they had to execute the right documents and form. This is the one of about 50 pages that it took for the legal framework for Sino-Hawk Holdings. Now, I wanted to just show you the entire first page. I realize if you're watching this is very, very, it's too small to read. But just before I even go to the next slide, please let your eye look clear to the bottom left. And even though you can't make it out, there's a serial number. Now, here's the top half of that sheet blown up a little bit. Sino-Hawk Holdings, you can clearly see that it's a limited liability company. And it says executed version. And then here's the bottom half. Now, if I don't think I can, but I'm going to attempt it just because this is so important. This is so important. I'm going to read, there's a serial number here, 1829339.30166-0002-000. Now, what is that? Well, first of all, have you ever bought a ream of paper where there's a serial number at the bottom of the paper? No, because it's copy paper. You copy onto it. Folks, this is a document that didn't come from LegalZoom. This is not Rocket Lawyer. This is not a template that you download somewhere. You're looking at a document that had probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of attorney fees to set that document up. And when you pay for a document like that, it's got a serial number. It's got a serial number. Yes, it does. So that was signed late May 27. And this is so important because we're going to talk about fraud now. We're going to talk about fraud, and we're going to talk about we're talking about forgery, and I'm showing that to you right now. So Tony Bobulinski has flown all over the place, wanted to get out several times. James Gillier said, no, stay in there. We can control. Oh, and let me just get into this too. And if maybe some of you have a business background, one of the contentions that Tony Bobulinski had is no way I'm getting in a 5-way partnership with all of these clowns and everybody's got an equal say, because Hunter will just up and take off with the money. And so one thing that he was very, very adamant about was that if he was going to be CEO, he was going to have 3 votes. Everybody else gets 1 vote about decisions and directions of the company. So if he had his 3 votes and 1 other vote, that's the direction the company was going in, and that would protect the company from Hunter. Okay, so they sign this Sino-Hawk agreement, and well, we can tell you when they did. I'm forgetting the date for some reason, so let me just blow this up here. It was signed the 15th of May 2017. No. It was executed the 24th of May 2017. Now that's very important that you remember that. So then the Chinese didn't fund it. There was a delay. Why was there a delay? Well, there's a couple of reasons it could be. One is the Chinese were notorious for making promises they didn't intend to keep, or stringing people along to make them nervous. It could have also been for some things that Hunter Biden was up to. Let's take a look at that possibility. And now what you're looking at, this is the whole front page, but not of Sino-Hawk Holdings. This is the whole front page of Hudson West. And again, I took that top half of it, and I want you to be able to see that, I got to blow this up a little bit for me, that this is an amended. So it's exactly the same as the top page of the Sino-Hawk, except you get down to the second page. It says, whereas Hudson West was formed under a Delaware company. Look at the time that it was formed. April 19th, 2017. So the one that all the partners signed was formed in mid-May, and then the fully executed on the 24th of May. This document, or at least the entity of what is in it? This is Hudson West. But now let me get back into that, because I want to make it more clear for you. Notice that was executed in the second day of August. So I don't want to make this complicated. Here's what happened. Hunter Biden committed fraud. He absolutely did. He committed fraud. He is allowing heavy hitters that have experience, real investors like James Gilliar, like Tony Bobulinski, Rob Walker, kind of. He's not as he's a little more incidental, but drawing on the expertise and the credibility and the know-how of real heavy hitters in the business investment world, like Tony Bobulinski, like James Gilliar, had gotten everybody dressed up, and they even signed the agreements. And then what does Hunter Biden do? He defrauds Tony Bobulinski and James Gilliar, Rob Walker, and cuts them right out of the deal. And this, when I read it in the transcript, I just couldn't believe it, because here's the thing. Let me get my little handsome face out of the way. This is the Hudson West agreement, okay? This is Hunter Biden. This is Hudson West, okay? And look at this. Look at the bottom of this page. And I'm going to read the serial number to you. 1829339.13016-002-000. It is the same serial number. The legal work that Tony Bobulinski paid for and had world-class attorneys put together to form the entity that was going to be Sinohawk, that was going to be able to handle billions of dollars exchanged all over the world. Hunter Biden simply did a cut and paste of the document with the same serial number, and then got an account, and then got the Chinese to fund it. And that was what was funded when Hunter Biden is sitting on the couch, holding his daddy's hand and screaming into auto text on his phone. Folks, this is just so unbelievable. So yes, in that transcript, I'm at what? I don't even know how many minutes I'm at. I've tried to keep this so I'm at 37 minutes, longer than I want to, but that's the best I can do. So if you go through this transcript, it is very obvious that there's evidence that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and Jim Biden were involved in illegal activity while Biden was a sitting vice president. And then this stuff happens after he's vice president, and then he lied about it. But to get his father paid after 2017, Hunter Biden committed fraud. What he presented to the banks to get those accounts was fraud. And he even forged the documents that he used to commit the fraud. I'm going to give an example, and then I'm going to close on what I think what was for me just as powerful of a bombshell. I was trying to think of an example of this. Maybe 2 or 3 guys or a group get together, or 2 or 3 guys, they want to form an investment group because they want to buy something that costs a lot of money, like an apartment building or something like that. And they find the apartment building, and they put out plans for how they're going to renovate it and rent it and whatnot. And maybe instead of going to a regular bank, or maybe a regular bank, but they find an investor group that wants to invest in their work. And so everybody does all this work and puts it all together, and they got a deal. And then at the last minute, somebody slips in a document connected with another entity and collects the proceeds. That's really similar to what happened here. I mean, Hunter Biden committed fraud, and he basically had to forge documents to do it. And then, so having said that, and I do, because I want to relish it. Let's just read this together and enjoy it. I am sitting here with my father. We would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I'm sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Now, the money did come in. The Biden crime family got paid. But I want to give you my take on it, because I absolutely believe this is the right take. I said this earlier, and this is why I'm saying it now. I wanted you to see those forgeries. I wanted you to see that transcript. They're getting seed money. They're getting money to pay the first month's rent. And Hunter Biden is wanting to yank it out of the account the very next day. He's basically taking the farmer just planted his field, and he's going to the first row, and he's pulling the seed of corn, because he'd rather eat the seed than reap the harvest. I mean, really, it's mind-blowing. But see, there's that payday loan, that pack rat, that crack pipe, that crack addict mentality. And so here's what I want to say. When we read that tweet and it seems like he's getting tough, I will make certain between me, but the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability, folks, the money came through. But if anybody thinks that Hunter got his way, it is just the opposite. The Chinese Communist Party, the Chi-Coms, played Hunter Biden like a fiddle. They already had evidence and pictures of video of all his nastiness and all of his habits. They had full knowledge of his crack addiction, his cocaine addiction, his addiction to these prostitutes, and his willingness to just play fast and loose and just mindlessly go. They knew who and what they were dealing with, and they played him like a pawn. And when they held back, and see, here's what's really funny, and maybe I can live on this. The Chinese got what they wanted. They got a completely bought and paid for compromised Joe Biden. And folks, they got it dirt cheap. They got it dirt cheap. And how stupid was Hunter Biden, who would rather have a chunk of that initial 5 or 10 million, when that company, when you read the history of that, guys, that company would have made those partners hundreds of millions each. It would have made them millions, then tens and millions. And I mean, oh my golly. And that's who we got in the White House. So let me close by this. Hunter Biden, the crime family, the Hunter Biden, the Biden crime family needs to go to prison for things that were committed before, or rather while Joe Biden was sitting vice president. The Biden crime family needs to go to prison for things that happened after Joe Biden was out of the vice presidency. And then Hunter Biden committed fraud, and he had to virtually basically commit forgery to do it, to cheat his partners out of their share of the business. And who benefited from it? The Chinese Communist Party, because they got all that dirt and they got all that influence, and they got it dirt cheap. So look, folks, please like, please share, please share. Please leave a comment, please subscribe. And until next time, God bless you. God bless your family. God bless the state of Ohio. And God bless the United States of America. Well, do that again.